Yo, if you're a private security professional wanting to take your game to the next level, go to executiveprotectiontrainingday.com to check out my personal success package for private security professionals. Essentially, it's everything I know about executive protection and a lot of soft skill training on the techniques, tactics, principles that I believe make it so some protection agents succeed while others fail, regardless of background. Anyways, check it out, executiveprotectiontrainingday.com. And remember, y'all, hard skills do save lives, but soft skills get you paid. Boom. You are now listening to an EDC episode of the podcast. Please keep in mind that anything that's referenced on the podcast as far as gear is also made available in my Amazon store. So visit Byron's Amazon store to scoop up any of the gear we talk about. And this is a series, man. So the EDC episodes are going to keep coming as I talk with new professionals. And we're going to get more and more information on what people are carrying and operating with out there in the game. Enjoy. Boom. Hey, what's going on, guys? Byron Rodgers back with the next chapter in our EDC episode. I've got Barry Mozian here with me once again. What's going on, man?
Hey, good to see you, brother. What's going on?
Good to see you. Good to have you. It's an honor. Absolutely. And so we're going to get into the EDC stuff. Real quick, just a little kind of what was background, just so people kind of know who you are, if you don't mind, brother.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Barry Mozian, and I'm the president of Talent Executive Services. And we are a corporate investigations and security consulting firm, an EP shop located in Orange County, California. We have a national and global reach and specialize in providing services that the federal law enforcement branches provide to the public. We provide to companies and corporations, again, both domestically and internationally. So that's a little overview. And my background personally is in U.S. Army field intelligence, member of alerts team back in the day, and saw some things, did some things, and around the world, and it was an invaluable experience for me, and kind of helped set my azimuth for my direction in my life. And here I am, private sector now.
Heck yeah, man.
Old gray beard.
Yeah, no, I'm digging it, man.
Yeah.
Whole gray, everything it's looking. You're already kind of one of those guys that I like. When I'm talking with you, I'm like, he's smarter than me. You're very intelligent and deliberate, and I always appreciate that about you.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's kind of you to say.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I'm definitely looking forward. And when I've seen your gear, everything's been like dress right dress. It's had its, it's very organized, and so I'm looking forward to getting into this, man. So EDC, how do you approach it? Why do you carry what? Where do you carry all that fun stuff? The
really cool thing about EDC to me is that it's such a thing out in the public purview now. And, it's even so influential now that when we're out doing target violence prevention training and awareness training in the corporate environment, it's become a component in a couple of slides on my PowerPoint presentation, because in a room full of civilians, I'll oftentimes talk about, we discuss situational awareness and understanding the 10,000 foot view of the psychological makeup of somebody who commits a mass casualty event. Mm-hmm. And what we try to do is refine that understanding to don't confuse somebody who may be displaying firearms and has an enthusiasm for firearms as somebody who is a prepared civilian, a prepared citizen. And there's a difference. And I'll, by a show of hands, ask people, does anybody know what the term EDC means? And of course, the majority of them don't. But there's occasionally, a guy out there, always a guy. Yeah, exactly. Kind of sheepishly looks around, and, you could spot him because they fit in with, the latest low pro version of 511's, Defender jeans or something like that, or they're wearing some sort of Vertex product or
right
bag, right? And and
they got a funky watch on or something.
Chops a little bit, but I'll say, look, here's the thing: there's a difference between these groups of individuals, right? Obviously, clearly, and guess what, guys? that gentleman is going to be the one who has the exit plan. So make friends, know that person, because guess what? They're prepared. They're the ones who are going to have the tourniquet in their go bag. They're the ones who are going to have the route already checked out. So make friends with them and get to know them. So anyways,
awesome.
It's been interesting and fascinating to see that evolution of everyday carry become very much a lifestyle factor. And then, going through that process of kind of weeding out the flashy stuff, the stuff that sounds cool, looks cool, but doesn't really work. It's not practical. And I think we're now at a point, that there's never been a better selection of commercial availability of good quality products out there at reasonable prices. And now it's almost an embarrassment of riches where the average citizen has to fight the urge to buy everything they see that seems cool and use the stuff, buy the stuff that you'll use, that you'll get trained up on, and you'll be able to practically carry. It's not going to be so overdone and overwrought that you're just not going to be able to carry it. And then also understanding the stages of it. What do I carry on my person as EDC? What do I carry in my computer bag, backpack that I carry into my place of employment or my school? And then what do I have in my vehicle as my vehicle setup? Because those are three different stages. The old saying for home defense, I use my, for those martial arts practitioners, I use my collie stick and my blade to fight to my pistol. I use my pistol to fight to my shotgun. I use my shotgun to fight to my AR. And, it's that progressive kind of concept of the right tool for the right application, depending on your environment. So anyways, that's a very long-winded and verbose way of saying big advocate and proponent of EDC, even if that EDC just means you're carrying, a nice rigid pen, a pocket light that you can carry, and you understand that your cell phone is not your flashlight, but rather is your communications device. Even if you're stripped down as that, and you've got the confidence and how to apply those tools, you're good to go. You're EDC for what you need. At any rate, so for me, EDC means different things to different people, obviously. And even from a kind of gender specific breakdown, for the working, female who's out there going to work and has to, be kind of dressed up in business attire and maybe has to wear very attractive but impractical footwear. EDC for her is going to be having a pair of trainers in her bag, right? So that in the event there's an earthquake or there's a active threat scenario in her place of business, she can take off the Jimmy Choos, stash them, throw on the Nike trainers or what have you. And now she's much more mobile, much more ambulatory, and can, run,
get out,
and do whatever she needs to. But that's not quite as sexy as having the, the Surefire light and the, exactly. And the Emerson, blade, and exactly. You've got your all your jazz. Exactly, right?
We start taking trash.
Let's do a gear dump, right? So you got the grill and you got all your fun stuff going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right. And no BCM is not sponsoring this episode, but they should be, right? But you can appreciate that. That's what it's different for different people, and that's what we really encourage our clients and in training sessions. For civilians to really focus on is be practical, know what you need, do that self-assessment, and then be practical about what you're buying, because you don't have to break the bank on it. There's a lot of good gear out there, and while you definitely want to spend for quality gear, you don't have to break the bank. You don't always have to go with military grade or even law enforcement grade. There's different things you can do, because if better that you have something than have nothing. Especially when it comes to, practical items like a good handheld light. That's a must. If you can't afford a full IPOC or individual blowout kit, buy one Israeli bandage, buy two, practice with the first one, and then pack the second one, and then, band up, use some Ranger bands and have your cat tourniquet that you picked up for $20 or whatever, right? You're
Yeah.
good to go. You'll stop bleeding. So those kinds of things. And you may not need the full blown, North American medical blowout kit that costs $200 or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely right, man. You gotta just piggybacking off what you're saying, and it's not just enough to carry it or buy it and have it. You really want to be able to carry things that are to the highest degree of your training. There's a lot to be said for that, but it's good to have it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you got the budget for it, pay for the good stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but like anything else, it's it's not the tool, it's the operator driving the tool.
Heck yeah.
So training as best you can, and it does all kind of complement each other. The mindset of situational awareness and discarding the concept of victim and being that self-motivated, driven individual, that you will survive this. Doesn't matter if it's man-made, natural disaster, just plain bad luck, whatever. All right, whatever. It's the hand I was dealt today, I'm going to roll and get it done. And I'm going to make it home to my loved ones or my cat or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so having those, that's really, I guess, to kind of back up a little bit, that's really when I use the term EDC, that's what I'm thinking of, is that trifecta. I'm thinking of mindset, proper TO&E, meaning equipment for the task at hand, and having that game plan.
Yeah.
So those three things, that's your EDC. It's not just the cool blade or the cool medical blowout kit or the high speed, low drag, agency pistol or ZevTech pistol you're running or whatever the case is. Those things are cool, but you want to have those three things working together. At least that's your baseline.
The software to run that hardware.
Roger that. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly right.
That's awesome.
Professionals talk about software, amateurs talk about hardware.
This is so true. It's so true. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Okay, good to go. That's kind of the mindset behind them. Are there any specific items that stand out to you?
Yes, absolutely. Again, as I said a little bit earlier, but to really emphasize the fundamentals for me when you leave your house is, doesn't stray far from the U.S. Army concept of shoot, move, and communicate. So with a standard issue kind of citizen, you may not be armed with a firearm, that's fine. You still want to be able to defend yourself. So have not only the plan, but the implement. So we already assume you have the plan, you have the mindset, the willingness to apply a plan. What is that plan going to be? And for most individuals, the thought of, especially, and there is not to be sexist about this at all, but there is a different mindset and indoctrination that goes on with civilian females and civilian males. And then you've got subcategories that break out. If you're athletically inclined, if that sport that you were involved in, whether a male or female, involves physical contact, your mindset's going to be slightly different. And thus your gear will be slightly different, right? Yeah. So just going with a general baseline of a relatively physically fit civilian who has a positive kind of self-actuated, self-realized mindset. The three things you want to focus on is shoot, translating into how am I going to defend myself beyond just my hands and my mind. And one of the basic things that they can run with, and unfortunately I don't have the example of, because I broke it actually, but I usually carry a Surefire pen with me, right? Yeah. And again, Surefire is not paying me to say this, but they're my favorite, manufacturer of these products. But any rigid pen, meaning aircraft grade aluminum, not one of those really crazy stabby pens that have a pointy cap that you have to unscrew. But if you look at Surefire as kind of the example, they've got aircraft grade aluminum pens that are just regular ballpoint clicker pens that are a writing instrument. They're a writing implement, right? But that rigid pen, everybody, male, female, doesn't matter, can use a pen. You always need a pen. And it's an easy thing to carry, right? And it's a permissible writing instrument or implement. It is not a weapon, right? And so that being the case, having a pen with you is always a good idea. The second piece of equipment that you should always have with you is a personal carry light, right? And that goes for even the high-speed, low-drag guys out there who have a weapons light. Why do I need a light? I'm not going to use the neck indexing shooting technique or any of that stuff. I've got a light on my weapon. Okay, great. You're not going to draw your weapon to find your way out of a darkened building.
Yeah.
You do that in civilian world, you might stumble across a problem at some point, right?
Yeah, you might get shot by the other guy.
Exactly right.
People are going to call the cops on you.
Precisely right. So why draw that attention? And so between the pen and the light, and of course the specs on the light, the two that actually the three light companies that I recommend, Surefire if you can pay for it, if you got the money, they will never fail you.
Yeah.
Streamlight is another good option, much less expensive and reasonably good quality for what you're paying for. And then I've been getting pretty turned on by Olight. Olight's got some products out there that are pretty good. Good quality LEDs. They hold up. They're shockproof and all that. They're not quite at the level of Surefire, but they're still good quality. And they're a little more civilian friendly.
Okay.
Pricing wise and the look and feel. But have a good light. And then on that light, what I recommend is the crenulated bezel, strike bezel, right? Simply because the light itself, you can use it in darkened situations. You lose power in your home, you lose power at work. If you parked your vehicle in the public parking space or the company parking garage and there's no lights in there at night, and you're transiting from your office to your car, instead of doing this on your phone, on your being in your black mirror, which is what everybody does, be out there with light in your hand and a pen in your hand. And that way, as you're transiting and moving, you're approaching that dark parking spot where your vehicle is, you hit it with that light, with that 500 plus lumens light, which is another factor. You want good lumens on your handheld. If there's a predator who's staged looking at that car as a possible, ambush location for you, if he sees, and it's going to be a he, and if he sees you hitting that car up, lighting that car up with a 500 plus lumen light, he's going to say, well, wait a minute. That's a prepared individual.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to, what else does she have? Does she have a blade on her? Does she have gas? Does she have a taser? Does she have a firearm? Yeah. I don't know if I want to find out about that.
You disqualify yourself as an easy target.
Right off the bat. And so the way to look at it is illumination tool, pen. These are both non-weapon items that can be used in an improvised situation as improvised weapons. They're also permissible in government buildings. They're permissible on commercial airlines because they're not weapons. But in the right hands, they can be deployed as self-defense tools to discourage an attacker from coming at you. And they're multi-use, unlike a firearm, which is a very specific tool. Flashlight you need. Once you get used to having this, you're going to wonder how you went, without it for all those years. Because again, this, your little black mirror, your cell phone is your comms device. Your light is your illumination tool. That's your light. That's not your comm device. So those three items, and I'm holding them up. I know we're on a podcast, but I'm holding them up to the camera. These things do not take up much space at all, and they could save your life. In the right application, the right combination, they will save your life. So those are my basic tools, basic kind of baseline when we're teaching citizens out there and civilians in workplace environment, that at the very least start with that. And then from there, start to think about things that, medical applications, things that will stop bleeding, which again is something you want to have regardless if you're worried about a human attack or if you're out hiking, you have an earthquake and heavy object falls on you, you're in a car accident and you suddenly have a bleeder, you suddenly find that you're bleeding and you need to arrest that bleeding as quickly as possible and prevent you from passing out. You want to have that med kit available. Now med kits, you just don't want to buy it and just kind of stash it. You've got to use them. and all of that. And stop me if I'm burning up too much time here, but I want to.
No, this is great, man. This is awesome. Of course.
I want to cover one other really, really important thing about EDC defensive tools that oftentimes females in particular will rely upon. And this is another thing, kind of an icebreaker that I do at our training is I'll have everybody in the room raise their hand that has a CS or pepper spray canister in their handbag, on their person, on their keychain, whatever. So you get there, half a dozen or so typically that raise their hand. My follow-up question, I go, good. Okay. So you're somewhat prepared. That's awesome. Great mindset. I can tell that you're preparing for the unknown. How old is that CS canister or that pepper spray? 2-3 years. Okay. When's the last time you actually tested it? Oh, I've never actually tested it. Okay. So, what does it say? Does that one say 12 feet? Does it say 21 feet? So on and so forth. Yeah, mine's 21 feet and it's great. And I've seen the video for it and all that. Okay, good. That's good to go. Okay. So an A for having a plan, at least some sort of plan.
And a tool.
But a major fail for not knowing how your equipment works, because that is a very specific self-defense tool, right?
Absolutely.
And then we go into all the specifics about why pepper spray is it's as specific as a firearm or as a knife, right? Mm-hmm. It's a tool, a self-defense tool that's designed for a very specific purpose under very specific conditions. Mm-hmm. So I walk them through the typical scenario that if you're transiting from your home to your vehicle, the mall to your vehicle,
work to your vehicle,
and you're out in an open environment that is not a closed, hermetically sealed environment of an office building, you've got crosswinds, you've got a breeze, you've got different factors that unless you're, a combat control technician from the Air Force, you're not noticing just kind of, automatically that you've got crosswinds. You got a southeast wind at 5 knots, with a slight pickup breeze. Nobody notices that, right?
No.
So the second you're under duress and you instinctively reach for that gas and you hit that, you don't know if you're going to catch a face full of your own CS gas or your pepper spray. And so at the very precise moment that you need to be at your best, you're now at half speed, right? At best.
If that, yeah.
Yeah. And here's the other piece. If you don't know what 12 feet looks like on that contact point for that arc of that spray, 21 feet for that matter, you're going to misjudge that. You're going to misjudge it.
Naturally.
And if you just get enough of that stuff on the guy's chest as he's approaching you, it's going to water up his eyes and he might blink him for a moment, but it's also going to piss him off and it's going to motivate him even further.
Yeah.
So you can't just rely on having a CS or a pepper spray canister sitting around in your handbag that's probably dead. It's probably lost its propellant. Mm-hmm. And so I tell them, if you're going to use that, great. Buy 2 every 6 months, one you use for training, and you practice how far it will actually spray in contact. And the other one is your carry. And then every 6 months, you religiously rotate it out. And that's just what you do. And you go, well, it's expensive. Well, how?
It's weapon maintenance. This is just the game.
Staying alive isn't cheap. You pay for healthcare.
Yeah.
You pay for auto insurance. You pay for safe vehicles, those types of things. So what's your life worth kind of thing. So if you're going to go to the trouble of actually arming yourself, it's the same thing if somebody, buys a firearm and they never train with it. It's an investment, but it's not going to do any good in a pinch. So all of this is to say all of these tools and implements are good, but they're only as good as the operator driving them. Mm-hmm. You got to practice with them and don't become reliant on overly complicated devices. Pepper spray canisters don't seem overly complicated, but in fact they are. And they're very specific. And there's countless not live videos, but there's countless training videos out there of law enforcement officers who train with these things on a regular basis because they're in the heat of battle and they can't tell what the weather conditions are sometimes. They employ CS gas canisters and it comes back on them.
Yeah.
Or it just doesn't work the way you think it will work in real life. And if the assailant is coming at you at speed and you get a shot off and you hit him with that CS gas, great. You might even disable him to some extent, but they're still coming at you. They fall on you with a face full of CS gas, you're going to have some of that contact in you, and it's going to impact your ability to defend yourself. So anyways, these are all things, nuances that people need to think about. And in particular, females, women, because it's not that they're not capable. It's not that they can't rise to the occasion. It is that there are very specific physical factors they need to consider and take into account.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would agree with you, man. I one time snuck into my dad's room and sprayed his, I don't know what kind of gas it was, but it was like this foam that went on the wall. And I was like, I'm going to die. That's going to kill me. And I was like trying to figure out how to clean it up. I hadn't touched it yet. And then all of a sudden I was like choking and had to run out of the room. And I was like, golly, man, you better be outside when you spray this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
It's not like all good in the hood. You spray that inside a house, or someone's getting wild in your living room and you zap them.
That's exactly right.
So I learned that lesson, when I was younger. And it's just good weapon maintenance overall. So do you, in terms of, I guess, and I like that you make the female considerations because it's different. We're different,
Mm-hmm.
The carrying the tennis shoes in the bag that's solid game. I hadn't even thought about that,
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a factor. Trying to run, and especially if there's some natural disaster and there's broken glass on the floor and you're about to try to exit the building and you have your pumps on or whatever, this isn't the way we want this going down. It's awesome stuff.
Exactly.
And making the considerations for more than just a human threat, that's part of the game. You got car accidents, you got natural disasters. I mean, these things are actually kind of more frequent, larger consideration than your active shooter. Although I heard I heard my buddy talking about something he read the other day that was talking about how it used to be, I may have said this already, but it used to be more common for someone to have dealt with more likely to get struck by lightning than to deal with an active shooter a year or so ago. And now that statistic is flipped. It's actually, things have changed. So
it definitely has. One of the things we say about active threat and active shooters is we're more acutely aware of it now because we're able to get that reporting component to us a lot faster. And the Department of Justice and the FBI in particular are gathering more specifically and correctly categorized types of shooting events and those types of things. And so we're seeing more of it. But if you looked back at the turn of the previous century, back in New York and some of the other major cities around the world, Paris, London, again, New York City, Istanbul, things like that, when the political movement, the anarchists, were really big, and this is late 1800s into the early 1900s.
Okay.
The anarchists were this radical political movement that was pushing back against modernity and industrialization and the dehumanization of people being kind of herded into factories. And in New York City in particular, anarchists were straight up bombing, the mayor of New York, city council members, stockbrokers, bankers, captains of industry. There was open terrorist acts happening in the city, not unlike in the Roaring '20s when Prohibition and the organized crime factions were fighting against the Bureau and other federal agencies on bootlegging and such. So we had open gunfights occurring back then and politically motivated assassinations and things like that. But you don't hear a lot about that except for, you hear catchphrases like, Bonnie and Clyde, Al Capone, Babyface Floyd, and, all of the notorious gangsters. And people kind of look back on it nostalgically and think, oh, those were crazy days. Well, no, that was open anarchy in the streets of America. And to be caught up in a shooting when the statistics back then would have been through the roof and would clear your sinuses today if we were to compare apples to apples in the statistics of it. So all of that is to say, yes, it's not great right now. And we do have a higher occurrence that's trending up a bit, but it's not the first time this has happened in America. and it's certainly not the first time it's happened in any other Western civilized society. It ebbs and flows. These types of eras and epochs of violence, they change. And the reason that's relevant, the reason I kind of bore people to death with those kind of walk down memory lane in history, is because, again, going back to what we talked about on the previous podcast, is that human beings are prone to violence at times under the right circumstances. And so knowing that, it's nothing new, it's nothing that's unique to our modern time. It's simply that we're more acutely aware of it now. So that's actually a benefit, because we can prepare ourselves accordingly to deal with it in a much better way.
Okay. Solid. Do you have like situational considerations for your EDC? Are there different things that make you carry different stuff, different items? If so, how do you approach all that stuff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great, great question. So a couple of points that I really try to emphasize on that is, just like with any executive protection agent out there, you dress to the gun, right? So depending on what the operation is, what your loadout is, you wear appropriate attire for that. So in that same kind of mindset where you have a little bit of pre-planning, a little advanced planning, we'll use a common occurrence in modern day life, going to the movies with your family, right?
Hey, here we go.
So if you think about it, okay, so great time, there's obviously been some example in history of lone wolf attacks occurring within public movie theaters and things of that sort. So when you think about a movie theater these days, how are they laid out? Well, they're laid out in amphitheater style, right? Yep. So everybody is going kind of up like stadium seating. And where are the exits? Down below.
Down below. You got to fight your way to them.
Right?
Yeah.
Where's that guy going to be?
Oh, right down there below.
Down below, right? And of course, we know in the Aurora shooting, that was precisely what occurred. And so if you're going to go out with the family to a movie, and again, I'm not saying you shouldn't go out to movies, but if you're going to do that, be prepared. So when you buy your seats, or if a lot of times now you can reserve your seats in a lot of these different theaters, or if you just walk in, give yourself time to get there early. So, it's going to sound very, old man, grandpa style.
But get it. This is what we're here to do.
15 minutes early, you're late,
right.
Yada, yada, yada. But you definitely want to do that, because it gives you the ability to check out the environment. You get in there, you get all your stuff, you get into the theater, you set up your family, you figure out your exits, and then you figure out if a bad guy's coming in, where's he going to come from? And so you've got your plan laid out. The lights are going to go out. So again,
you get to see everyone too. You can see
everybody coming in too, right?
You see the sketchy people with the big eyeballs and got their sunglasses on for no reason, and
exactly trench coat.
Who's paying attention? Who's not?
Yeah, who's watching you? Watch them. That kind of stuff. So exactly right. All the human behavioral stuff you want to do. But if you're going out, so your EDC for that run is, you definitely got to have your light.
Yep.
I would recommend, if you're trained up on it, have some med gear with you, but not a lot, just something that can stop bleeding. And then make sure your phone is charged. Now, the phone being charged, we all know that's a huge, huge challenge. So you want to make sure that, you're in your vehicle, you're plugging that phone in, you're charging it. You have your some sort of a outboard portable battery system that you can charge while you're in the theater. If you've got your bag with you, or if your wife's got her handbag, or your boyfriend's got his man bag, whatever the case is, then you've got your Mophie charger or your other outboard battery charger that you can plug in, and your phone's being charged. Now, that sounds all kind of like nerdy and overkill and whatnot, but again, your phone is your comms device, right?
Yep.
And so you want, in that situation of going to the movies, dark environment, a lot of strangers, I can't pre-screen, limited exit options. I want to have everything to my advantage. I want to be able to get my family up, get them out that door, and move, and know what my options are in getting them out. And if I have to fight my way through an assailant, then I've got to have a plan for that as well. So again, do I have my folder, my clip knife with me? Do I have my pen? Or am I a responsible armed citizen, right? And if so, do I have a weapons light on there? Is that light good to go? Right? Is it fully, batteried up and all of that? So those are the factors, and it's as simple as that. okay, I'm going to be in a theater. I'm a CCW holder. I've got my rig with my weapons light. I'm good to go. I know I can engage at certain distances in dark environments or low light environments. So that's your EDC for that environment. If you're going into a non-permissive environment like a courthouse or a government building of some sort, then and you can't have a firearm with you, or you're not a licensed CCW holder, then you just have to have a plan of attack, again, for the devices you're going to use. But the movie theater example is a common one. Another one is sporting events. Okay. If it's an arena, indoors, basketball game, the biggest factor you're worried about there, as well as the theater, is if the lights go out or if there is darkness suddenly and you've got a herd of people coming down those stairs, stadium seating, an armed assailant may not be your biggest danger. It may be that getting trampled or having your loved ones trampled, your kids, that type of thing, that could be your biggest danger. Yeah. So moving immediately may not be your first option. You may need to think about holding your ground, seeing the lay of the land, see what happens, and then go from there. So planning is really the biggest part. The tools remain mostly the same. Just because you go out in daylight, another thing to take into consideration with the handheld light, the three items again: the phone, your black mirror, your portable handheld light, and some sort of rigid stabbing implement, and what have you. Those are easy. You should be able to carry those. You should always have room for those. Well, it's broad daylight. I'm just going to the grocery store. Why do I need a flashlight? Well, because that's a blunt striking instrument as well. It's not just a flashlight. Yeah. And guess what? You're going out in daylight. You may be in a situation where you find yourself in the darkness, whether it's inside a location that loses light, or you're held away from your home until nightfall. And now what? You're going to wish that you had it, right? Yeah. You're going to wish that you had that. Same thing with carrying a weapons light on your pistol. If you're that responsibly armed citizen, really consider your EDC carry of having a weapons light on there, because you may go out in daylight, but you may find yourself in low light conditions before you know it. So just get used to it. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, it can be. But carry, get accustomed to having that light, because everybody needs light.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've had so many times when I use my light, even as a civilian. I just now, if I never work protection again, I'll have a flashlight on me every single day until the day I die. Because you, like you said, you'll be surprised how many times you actually use it once you start having one. And there's just a ridiculous amount of benefits. And I feel like too, it's like the planning, the software is a part of your EDC, because that plan that you have is really what's going to make the difference in more circumstances than having a firearm and things like that. It's nice to have those tools, but if you pick the right spot in the theater, you can get out, or you can get better angles on that threat more easily to give you more options to address that threat. And
Roger that.
Man, it's the planning stuff is big. You sit in the right spot in the restaurant, you'll have a better chance if the threat behaves or comes through the front door, or depending on where it is, you're going to be in a better position. So even if you don't have that weapon, man, the plan is really what gives you that tactical edge.
Absolutely. And to that point, exactly, it's something that we also talk about in training, and in my situation in particular, when you're when you are kind of when you have a family, friends, whatever, but family in particular, and kids, younger kids, half the trick is, since you are the designated protector of that family unit, is being able to move with those younger ones who you've got to get on board with the plan. Now, how do you do that? Because you don't want to sit there and talk at length about bad people that come in and do bad things, because at that point in their life, that really changes their mindset and unnecessarily gets them worried about things they don't need to be worried about right then, because you're handling it. So what do you do about that? So what my wife and I did when my two girls, who are now, young adults and teenage, right in that transition age of teenager and young adult, when they were probably 6 or 7, when we would go out to theaters or we go out to the restaurants in particular, in order to get them situationally aware, we would play a game. And that was that if they once we got to our seat at the restaurant, the first one to come up with the most viable and sound exit plan, whether it was an earthquake, a kitchen fire, a bad guy showing up trying to hurt people, whoever came up with that exit plan that stood the test of the what ifs, right? Well, what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
Got to have dessert, whether they finished their dinner or not.
Incentivized.
And so they were, heck yeah, I'm all over that. So it became a game that there was an incentive and motivation to do it, and it was fun. And but it got them thinking critically about their options, right? And we weren't just talking about bad guys showing up with firearms. We would talk about, if you're in a restaurant, there's a kitchen. Kitchen has gas lines. Could be an earthquake in California, gas line ruptures and you have an explosion, right?
Yeah.
And now that exit that you spotted, which is a good exit if you have an active shooter come in, because they're coming in through the front typically, may not be your best exit because it's going right by the kitchen. It's a backdoor exit going right by the kitchen where the fire is, and you don't want to go near the fire. So what are your other options? And so it's a fun way to kind of get them to think about and interact on a serious issue that doesn't have to be so morose and focused on, bad results and bad outcomes.
Outstanding.
But it's a huge empowerment factor because it gets the kids thinking from an early age. Now, if you're fortunate enough that you live in a part of the country or it's practical in your everyday lifestyle that you're teaching them how to fish and hunt and trap and track and do all that stuff, good on you. You're blessed with those options. In urban and semi-urban or suburban environments, that's not going to be the case. Those aren't practical everyday skills you're going to be able to focus on. So finding a way to educate and empower your family to get on board with the process is huge, because then you're not, they're thinking and they're acting and you're all moving together and pulling in the same direction, as opposed to you trying to herd cats in a moment of crisis when things are crazy and you're having to do double duty because you're trying to herd your kids out a dark theater where things are falling apart. So anyways, those are things that, again, going back to the issue of software, you need to think about your whole unit. Who are you going out with? Who's ambulatory? Who's not? Who has special considerations? And have a plan for those special considerations.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Are there any pieces of gear that I really like that kid game thing. I'm going to do that, by the way. That sounds good gouge right there, man. That's good stuff. Are there any pieces of gear that have failed you or that you don't carry for any specific reason? Anything that maybe people should steer away from? That's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, don't get caught up, and this is aimed towards the male audience because women have more sense about themselves than this, but guys get caught up, especially civilians who maybe don't have military experience or law enforcement experience. They get focused on the tactical stuff. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. Don't get caught up in the stuff that's going to make you stand out. Try to be the gray man. Because again, just because, a backpack has, Molly loops on it doesn't mean it's going to be more effective. In fact, it's going to be less effective because you're not going to use Molly, strap-on accessories. It's just going to be ridiculous. You're not going to carry it.
You're dropping breadcrumbs everywhere.
Well, exactly. Guaranteed. If a threat sees that, they're gonna eyeball you. And while it may be a visual deterrent to some extent, it's likely going to be more of you're going to be the first guy I'm going to hit.
Yep.
And so you want to be that gray man. So don't. And the other unfortunate reality is the gear companies out there that are just shooting for volume sales, they're making the tactical stuff because they know guys will buy it. And they'll spend premium dollars for something that really you don't need. It's useless. Mm-hmm. So don't get caught up into that marketing, bait and switch.
Yeah.
Buy gear that you're going to use practically that doesn't scream tactical. Mm-hmm. Be the gray man. And the 72-hour backpacks that have all the Molly strapping on it, miss me with that. You don't need it. Go with the stuff that blends. And typically that's going to be your North Face, your mountaineering type gear, the stuff that you'll find at like REI or whatever, right? your Arc'teryx, if you can afford it, the stuff that is structurally designed for outdoor use and mountaineering, really, that's what I find is stuff that's built to last, and it doesn't stand out. They make it in more civilian-friendly gray man kind of setup. So that's the way to go. So anyways, that's the other thing that I'm not a huge fan of, but this is a personal preference issue, is that if you are a CCW holder, I am not a big fan of off-body carry. And so the sling bags and and I love Vertex stuff. A lot of Vertex stuff is really well made, well designed, well thought out. Same with 511. They've got a lot of good gear. I'm just not a big fan of even a secondary backup pistol in an off carry situation, because it's too easy to lose positive control of that bag. And once you lose that, you own whatever happens with that firearm. Any bad stuff that happens, it's on you. So if you're a CCW holder, I recommend having that pistol on you where you have positive control of it all the time. It's part of the responsibility of having it. It's going to keep you out of trouble from a civil liability standpoint, and ideally from any kind of a tragic, situation where your firearm's not in your direct immediate control.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And then any like CCW considerations as far as clothing, dress? I mean, things kind of go without saying to us, but some of the listeners may not, may appreciate the information. And
this is obviously nothing new, and I'm just kind of, repeating what is already known out there in the world, in the CCW community, is you got to dress to the gun. Now, I will be the first to admit that I do my best to dress to the gun, but there are times when, because I'm carrying a full framed, 22, G22 or G17 or what have you, where I'm going to get a little bit of printing. So I'm not the best. My operations director, King Guerci, is the master of deep concealment of firearms. That guy, it's like he's got internal storage compartments on his body where he can just tuck a pistol, and he's always been good at it. Back in the day when he was running 1911s, he was one of the first guys that I knew before it became cool to carry appendix style, and he used to carry 1911s appendix style, that's just straight up ballsy. That's straight up baller move. I never trusted myself enough or the mechanical safety on that weapon to carry it in an appendix style. But all that is to say that you have to be very cognizant of printing, and I could be better at it. And I'm not as good as I could be, but more or less I've picked up a lot of tips from him and just kind of getting more comfortable with it. So bottom line is dress to the weapon, dress to the pistol. Make sure you've got appropriate drape on your outer garment, and that you're obviously practicing with your draw stroke and that type of thing. But don't just assume that, I've got my CCW. If I print a little bit, big deal, I'm legal. No, the expectation is if you print and you cause consternation in the public with it, and a law enforcement officer rolls up on you, you could lose your CCW as a result of it. If they want to get crazy about it and say that you're brandishing, it's a fine line between printing and brandishing. And, so just be smart about it. Be smart about what you're wearing, dress to it. And, if you're going to be out there, being Johnny Cool, and you want to go out there in your board shorts and your T-shirt, maybe that's not the day you carry a pistol. Maybe you're doing something else. So just, be smart about it, dress to the weapon, and know your environment, and know who's going to be watching you.
Yeah, your venue, consider it. Solid. Any other considerations?
If you're going out and you are, again, a properly licensed CCW holder, absolutely have a backup magazine, at least one.
Yes.
If not more.
Yes.
Have that backup magazine, because you know the drill. 1 is none, 2 is 1. And you're going to go through, if you're in California, you're going to go through those first 10 rounds faster than you might think.
Yeah.
And you got to have at least that next 10 to maybe stay in that fight and stop the threat. So always, if you're carrying a pistol, if you're carrying even a wheel gun, if you're carrying a little 38, Chief Special, have that stripper clip or have that speed load ready to roll, because you're probably going to need it. One of the things we used to say, and this might be a little much for a podcast, but if something's worth shooting once, it's worth shooting twice.
Heck yeah.
better have that backup magazine as well. So definitely do that, and that's obviously a consideration when you're dressing. Again, if you're rolling around in board shorts and a loose T-shirt, you got to carry your wallet, you got to carry your phone, carry your keys. Now you got a magazine you're carrying. Mm-hmm. Are you going to go with the gun today? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But if you're going to carry a pistol, have those items.
100%. Yeah, I agree. Especially in Cali, I got like a little double mag caddy that I throw on. That's just like real low pro, but I just gotta have it, because
gotta have it.
Heaven forbid, man. Heaven forbid.
You never know when the bad man's going to show up.
Yeah, and what it's going to take to stop them. Solid, brother. So, yeah, man. I mean, that sounds like you pretty much covered it. And are you kind of like modular, like you have your pocket items on you and then you have something else in the car?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got what I carry on my person, what I carry in my bag. And so, the items on my person is obviously my pistol, mm-hmm. my backup magazine, my light, a pen, and my comms device, right? So that's on my person. And then oftentimes I'll also have a clip or a backup
poker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Get off me implement.
Yeah, so, get off me implementer.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody gets on me and I don't want them in my space, and that encourages them to back off. Mm. So those are the items that are always on me, in addition to my wallet, my keys, and all that jazz. Yeah. Then in my bag, I've got my GSW kit, gunshot wound kit, backup additional, which is inclusive of Israeli bandage, hemostatic
pressure dress
bandage, or some sort of application, so blood stopper, as well as a tourniquet. And my preference is a cat tourniquet. I also do have rats tourniquets, which I believe in. Whichever style I'm not like in that whole war between combat medics and PJs that are like, rats tourniquets, it's bullshit, it's a rubber band.
Yeah.
Whatever. If you're going to have a tourniquet, just know how to use it. Yeah. So that's in my bag, as well as 2 spare mags that are easily accessible. And then I've got, my little kit bag that has a Mophie battery backup. I've actually got 2 backup batteries, so I can go for a sustained period of time. And then I have a small roll-up Vapor water container, a quart-sized water bag that rolls up and compresses, and iodine tablets. So that way, if stuff has really gone crazy and I'm on foot and I'm out in the world for 12 plus 24 hours, I need water. And I can't, am I going to be able to find water? Sure, I'm going to be able to find water. But in the event that I can't, I know I can use that bag to fill up even stagnant water, hit it with the iodine tablets, and now I'm mobile and I'm hydrated for another, 8 to 10 hours, whatever. But the hydration aspect is a huge thing, because most of us don't drink enough water in the first place. And all it's going to take is a couple of stints of really extended physical exertion, and you're going to get dehydrated. And if you're not already hydrated from Jump Street, right? Exactly right.
Hydrate or die, man.
Hydrate or die. We know the deal. So that, but it sounds ridiculous, and it sounds, oh, come on, miss me with all that jargon, jingoy stuff, but it's the truth. And the simple example is, if you're in a training session, you say, hey, okay, if you had to kick off your Jimmy Choos and go run sprints, 200 meters worth of 50-yard sprints or 50-meter sprints, you think you're going to be dehydrated after that? Yeah, of course I would be. Okay, so if you're in a place of employment in a business complex and you got to run to get out of there, mm-hmm. Isn't that like a 50-meter sprint? And you may have to do it several times. you're going to be dehydrated. And if now you've got to continue after that, you're going to be dehydrated. So, so within the bag, so my personal carry, then I've got my backup medical, backup ammunition, and hydration capability in my backpack, which is my computer bag and all that stuff. And then in my vehicle, I've got additional med supplies, additional water supply, and additional soft armor, and sometimes plate armor, depending on where I'm at. And, in theory, I may or may not have a long arm as well, depending on, again, where I'm at. So again, fighting from my personal position to my bag, from my bag to my vehicle, from my vehicle to wherever I got to be. So that's kind of how I set up my EDC.
Heck yeah. That's what's up. I do the same thing. I'm just about patrol ready from my car, but ready to fight out of a building on my person. And then, got that day pack with me with some extra cool stuff in there. Yeah, man. Yeah. That's it's like a modular approach is really what we're seeing with.
Exactly. That's precisely it. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Good to go, man. That's all I got. You got anything else you want to throw in there? Yeah, that's all my questions, man.
Yeah, no, I think that's really it.
And invest in the software.
Invest in the software. Use the stuff. And here's the big secret. Once you get the fun stuff and you start playing with it and using it and applying it, that's the epiphany moment. That's when you're like, God, this stuff works. It's not just nonsense. It's not just cool looking stuff. It works. I feel better about myself. I'm more prepared. And that's the epiphany moment. And you love to see that on people's faces when they realize this stuff works.
Yeah. And, or you get the cool stuff you wanted and then you learn how to get down and you're like, yo, that's stupid and cool. I just wanted it because I saw it on Instagram.
I didn't Everybody's got that moment. We all got the the kit bags full of stuff that look cool.
It's sitting right around.
Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got a graveyard of cool guy gear. I need to start put on offer up or something.
That's why God made eBay. Sell that stuff.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks so much for your time again, Barry. I got to catch up with Kane too, man. We can get
absolutely.
But thanks once again for your time. This is great content.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to do this. You're putting out the knowledge out there, and good on you, and keep up the good work.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Talk soon, brother.
All right. Take care.
Yo, if you're a private security professional wanting to take your game to the next level, go to executiveprotectiontrainingday.com to check out my personal success package for private security professionals. Essentially, it's everything I know about executive protection and a lot of soft skill training on the techniques, tactics, principles that I believe make it so some protection agents succeed while others fail, regardless of background. Anyways, check it out, executiveprotectiontrainingday.com. And remember, y'all, hard skills do save lives, but soft skills get you paid. Boom. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place by teaching people how to protect themselves and the mindset behind that, the lifestyle behind that. You guys are already killing it. $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can do that you know you would probably just lose in the mattress anyway or spend on McDonald's. Hey, you want to put it towards something that's going to good use, put it towards a podcast, and get involved in our Patreon account at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. And if you want to find me, that's ByronRodgersMotivation.com. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can to that Patreon account, because it makes all of these things possible, ladies and gentlemen. So much love. Thank you for making those contributions. You guys rock. We're already doing amazing there, and it's just because of you guys. So thanks once again for those contributions. Boom. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This whole entire thing actually just started off as a Facebook group that blew up and is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing, executive protection Facebook group online. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, join the Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram and check us out at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. If you want to find me, that's Byron Rodgers Motivation.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as well. So until the next podcast, y'all, stay sharp out there. And as I say it, one mind, many weapons. Talk soon. Out.